Man, being a millennial, I mean, I feel like we got totally over, right? We did, okay? Hear me out, okay? This is what happened. Millennials, it was our time before the pandemic. We were gonna like own and like have 401k. I don't know what that is, but we were gonna have it, okay? We were gonna, stocks, bonds, I don't know, but it was ours. And then we all had to go inside because of the pandemic, and then while we were on Zoom doing Zoom yoga, Gen Z came in and like a phoenix from the ashes just came and usurped everything from us, and that is unfair because we survived so much already, okay? We survived 9/11, we survived the housing crisis, we survived elections, okay? Yeah, and if you're wondering which one, all of them. They've all been bad for us, okay?
I kind of agree with this. That was comedian Jenny Zagrino talking about the hardships of being part of the millennial generation. Joining us now, New York Times style reporter Sadiba Hassan. She recently wrote a piece that highlighted a social media post that went viral, asking users to provide their most, quote, millennial complaint. Sadiba, great to have you on. I guess first explain the premise of this, how this all started.
Yeah, it all started a few weeks ago with the post that asked people to share their most millennial complaints as opposed to their most boomer complaints. And boomer complaints, that's a concept that's been around for quite some time now. Some common ones include that people use their phone too much or nobody works as hard anymore. So millennial complaints, that's targeted more to a younger generation. And it was a bit of a jokey post, but it prompted a couple thousand of replies, and it turned into quite a moment of nostalgia for people. Some funny ones were that like bring back heels to the club because Gen Z is known to wear sneakers when they go out. Or another one was, everyone's ringtone should be a 20-second cut of their favorite song because, in the 2000s, people's ringtones were like Beyonce or Britney Spears or whoever. But what I found to be interesting is that a lot of these replies were not calling back to the 90s or the 2000s or an era long ago, but rather like around a decade ago, 9 or 10 years ago, a time that was not so far long ago, but it feels like it does feel like a while ago when issues like fragmentation and AI and misinformation were not as prevalent. So a lot of these replies, they did have to do with social media, which draws attention to just how much the world of social media has changed in the past decade or so.
And how it has changed us and impacted us and millennials. Another response, Marta writes, quote, millennial complaint. Bring back 22 to 24 episodes, 42 minutes long, 1 day a week for 6 months. It was glorious. Another user writes, quote, I absolutely hate that there has to be an app for everything, a username and a password for everything, two-factor, password managers, etc. I hate it so much. And one user with perhaps a controversial take writes, quote, comedy films aren't nearly as funny as they were from 2002 to 2014. I'm noticing also some ominous responses, like I'm not going to be able to own a home. We're working these insane hours. We're not going to get the same life that our parents had, which I think is a reality that we're seeing playing out before these millennials who are faced with some serious challenges. They used to be kind of the butt of jokes, and now actually they are the warriors of these changing times.
Exactly. Inflation, that was a topic that came up a lot, and every generation is wary of new changes. But if there is a baton to be passed, it's the millennials' turn to kind of express their grievances. So right now, with rising costs, that was something that a lot of people did bond over when it came to complaining about that. For example, one reply that I thought was really funny was that I should be able to afford both avocado toast and a house. And that references the trope that, millennials love avocado toast and they'll never be able to buy a house if they keep buying avocado toast. But, people were yearning for the days of, cheaper Chipotle bowls, cheaper concert tickets, cheaper Ubers. One person that I spoke with said that it costs $100 to leave his house. So now, as a joke, but yeah, with most millennials being over 30 now, they feel that they're not where they're supposed to be compared to their parents, and that they were promised that if you work hard, then you can buy a house, you can have a good standard of living, and many of them are finding that to not be the case.
Many of them are. And one of our millennial segment producers here at Morning Joe, Stasia, shared one of her complaints saying, quote, "I don't want a receipt texted or emailed to me. If I want a receipt, I'll get a paper one." Ali Vitale, I think you are a resident millennial.
I am.
Any complaints? All right, any millennial complaints from you? Please.
I have so many.
This is
I
your
said
moment.
to the control room, I feel like this is my Festivus moment, especially because when I was coming into the workforce, here's my complaint. There was this view that millennials were entitled to be there, but I never felt that. I always felt like the message was exactly what Sadiba is talking about. If you work hard, that's how you'll ultimately be able to get ahead. And so, yeah, we're the generation that lived through everything from 9/11 through the 2008 crash, the housing crisis, but then also high-rise jeans, diet culture, the entitlement phrases that I was talking about in the workforce. So, Sadiba, can you talk about the sense of community that millennials might have felt, like me, reading your article, watching these responses, and maybe even watching this segment?
Right. It definitely feels like a lot of people are resonating with this and bonding about this. And, nostalgia is so powerful, and many studies show that it can yield positive social and psychological benefits and help people, maintain a sense of identity when the world feels chaotic. So a lot of people, one year that always comes up when millennials specifically talk about, when things were great or better is 2016. And people were bonding over the summer of 2016. It was a summer when everyone was outside, the parties were so great, everyone's dancing, the music was good. It was the last year that Rihanna dropped an album. It was the last year that Frank Ocean dropped an album. So that year always comes up in pop culture and social media that millennials bond over as being a great time. Bad Bunny has a song called 2016, which means 2016 in Spanish. So, people are reliving the days when millennials were reliving the days when they were younger. A lot of them were younger than 30, and things were more affordable.
Anand, listening to Sadiba and Ali talking about millennials and the whole situation in their lives and everything like that, I was struck by the fact that millennials, according to my eyes and my years, they're young. They're just starting out.
Thank you.
What's the definition of nostalgia for a 28-year-old walking down the street not paying attention with a Starbucks coffee in his or her hand and looking at the phone with the other? What's their future? What's nostalgia mean to them?
Well, what's so touching about these posts is some of them are genuine nostalgia in that they are...
How can you have nostalgia when you're 26?
Well, I'm a millennial, and I'm 43. So millennials go from that kind of youthful end. My hair is your age, but but the rest of me is pure millennial, older, geriatric millennial, I think it's called. So some of this is nostalgia for actual things that used to be. But what's really touching in this story of yours is that there's nostalgia for what will never be for this generation. There's a kind of nostalgia. There's a Muddy Waters song, you can't spend what you've never got, you can't lose what you've never had. There's a nostalgia of losing what they've never had. That idea of a home, that idea, so many millennials are not getting married because they think they can't afford to be married. How many people in human history have not gotten married because they couldn't afford it, but now we're doing it, not having kids because they fear their... So that notion of being nostalgic for what you never had. And it seems like people in your article are awakening to things that they've suffered in silence or suffered alone and realizing that they're structural, realizing that other people share them in common.
They're missing their parents' lives.
Right, because they were promised that you will have this as well. And they're realizing, wait, maybe we won't,
Yeah.
I really do think this piece and these answers sort of represent the issues of our time. New York Times style reporter Sadiba Hassan, thank you so much for bringing this to us. We appreciate it. Great conversation.
Thank you.